Klay Thompson's dad ended up checking Monica McNutt and everybody who has the same ideology that she has when it comes to why Caitlin Clark is famous and why she's such a big phenomenon.
When Mychal Thompson, NBA champion and father of Klay Thompson, admitted he was genuinely starstruck meeting Caitlin Clark, it stopped me in my tracks. Think about that for a second. This is a man who won titles alongside Magic Johnson, battled icons like Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, raised a Hall of Fame caliber shooter, and spent decades surrounded by basketball royalty. Yet standing in front of him wasn't another NBA legend.
Well, they don't like Caitlin Clark. You know, Caitlin Clark, I've been noticing, I've been following her career since she was a sophomore at Iowa, and I recognized how different she was, how different she played the game. She played the game like Steph Curry. We had never seen a woman play like that before.
It was a WNBA guard who changed how the game looks. And somehow, that still bothers people. Mychal didn't hesitate. He talked about watching Clark back when she was a sophomore at Iowa, recognizing immediately that her game was different. Not just good. Different. The way she shoots, the way she sees the floor, the confidence from the logo. He said it plainly. We've never seen a woman play like this before. And that's exactly the problem for some voices in sports media. Instead of celebrating what makes Caitlin Clark special, certain analysts keep trying to reduce her rise to something else entirely. Not her range.
I was trying to emphasize it for about a year, then he finally caught on, and men who travel with us in our traveling party who are basically anti-women's basketball, just didn't care for it, didn't want to talk about it, had no interest in it at all. All of a sudden, they started watching Caitlin Clark and got intrigued by her, and they became fans of her and her.
Not her court vision. Not the millions of fans she's brought to women's basketball. But her background. Her appearance. Her identity. So the real question isn't about Clark at all. It's about why someone with Monica McNutt's platform keeps aiming at the league's biggest draw. And more importantly, what did Mychal Thompson say that finally exposes the truth behind it all? Stay with me. Mychal Thompson's point wasn't subtle, and it wasn't accidental. He wasn't trying to spark a debate or bait headlines.
WNBA and all the people that follow the WNBA and try to promote the WNBA don't understand that Caitlin Clark's game resonates with us. I say this every day, and every day I got to deal with somebody else dumb in the media. Caitlin Clark's game resonates because she's got flair, she's got flash, she's got style. I said this before, and I'll say this again. We saw Sue Bird's game. We saw Diana Taurasi's game. Kim Mulkey was Sue Bird before Sue Bird became Sue Bird. We've seen it. We haven't seen it.
He was describing something he personally witnessed. For nearly a year, he said, he tried to explain Caitlin Clark's impact to people who had no interest in women's basketball at all. These weren't casual fans. These were men who traveled with NBA teams, who lived and breathed professional basketball, and who openly dismissed the women's game without ever giving it a chance. They didn't want to hear about it. They didn't want to watch it. They didn't want to engage. Then something changed. They started watching Caitlin Clark, not because of a marketing campaign.
The folks that cover the NBA, these people that play in the NBA, these people that cover the NBA, there I said these people, all of you, black, white, green, purple. Why don't you understand a very simple thing? Her game is dynamic. Like Diana Taurasi was like a jackass to Caitlin Clark. Why? Her game is what people are drawn to. And then you go to the personality. Her game is different than any WNBA woman ever. And she wins, and she shoots from deep. It's no different than Steph Curry. How many times?
Not because someone told them they had to. They watched because clips kept popping up. Logo threes. One-handed passes. No-look assists. Shots taken with no hesitation from distances defenders weren't even guarding. And slowly, those same skeptics didn't just tolerate her game. They got intrigued. Then they became fans. That's not identity politics. That's basketball speaking for itself. That's why Monica McNutt's comments landed the way they did.
Honestly, the main reason is because of her talents. It's not because of her race. Her race has nothing to do with it. Especially with kids. She's saying kids kids don't see color, man. The kids that I grew up around, and when I grew up as a kid, I didn't see color, man. I did not see color. I didn't care about color. I didn't know what color was. I just knew you were a human being, and I was trying to be your friend. It's kind of a crazy, nonsensical take to say that kids were looking up to her because she was.
There's an unspoken line in sports media that most analysts understand instinctively. You can critique performance. You can debate impact. You can argue rankings. What you don't do is dismiss generational skill by attributing it to race or optics. Yet in a recent interview, McNutt did exactly that. Instead of engaging with Clark's play, she reframed Clark's rise as symbolic rather than earned.
There's all type of nationalities and ethnicities that follow Caitlin Clark and rock with her. So it's not that. I don't think that's...
According to her framing, this wasn't about talent. It was about what Clark supposedly represents. Pause on that for a moment. If jealousy were a sound, it would sound exactly like that. When someone asks, half joking, half serious, whether you'd be jealous of a player who secured a massive shoe deal before stepping onto a professional court, the question answers itself. Of course envy exists. But envy doesn't invalidate excellence. It explains resistance to it. McNutt's argument collapses the second you examine the details.
Hey, it's every day. I don't know why Monica McNutt or anybody that professes to know basketball can't simply say, you know, our game's just different than everybody we've ever seen. Ever. Now, don't tell me. I've watched. Ever. Tamika Catchy's great player.
Clark didn't break NCAA scoring records because of where she's from. She didn't rack up assists because of branding. Defenders don't blitz her at half court because of demographics. They do it because if they don't, she'll end the game in 5 possessions. The deep threes aren't aesthetic choices. They're weapons. The passes aren't flashy for attention. They're reads made before defenders realize they're late. Reducing all of that to race isn't analysis. It's avoidance, and here's what makes that avoidance so transparent. If Clark's popularity were purely demographic, it wouldn't translate once the novelty wore off. Fans would move on. Ratings would dip. Interest would cool. That didn't happen. Instead, viewership surged. Attendance spiked.
Done. Sabrina, Brianna, Kelsey, Diana Taurasi. You had and have these white players in the league that never galvanized the people like this. All right. Now, granted, you can have some people come back and say, well, the media and the coverage wasn't as good as it is now. NILs and things like that weren't popping off. That has nothing to do with it. That has nothing to do with it, man. If they were that captivating, they would have.
Merchandise sales exploded. The Indiana Fever didn't accidentally end up with hundreds of nationally televised games on the schedule. Networks don't gamble airtime on narratives. They invest in results. Clark's game resonates because it's electric. That's the word people keep dancing around. Electric. There's pace. There's confidence. There's unpredictability. She plays with a freedom that forces defenders to make impossible choices. Guard her close, she blows by you. Give her space, she pulls from the logo. Help on the drive, she finds the open shooter without looking. That's not new because she's white. It's new because it hasn't existed in this form before. We've seen greatness. Sue Bird was surgical. Diana Taurasi was ruthless.
Have the Sky in the playoffs right now, which means that Angel Reese, in theory, has impacted winning in a greater way. But I think the double-double streak that she's on, the 8 consecutive double-doubles, for Caitlin, she's leading rookies in points, minutes, and assists. There was terrific stats put out over the weekend by our colleague Michael Vopel about the percentage, about her being the player that has seen the most blitzes in the league. And so she's navigating a different level of defensive intensity, and rightfully so, because she's playing the point guard role for this Fever squad. So I think today, looking at the standings, you probably tend to lean.
Legends exist. But Clark doesn't replicate them. She bends the geometry of the court in a way that mirrors what Steph Curry did for the NBA. That comparison isn't hype. It's structural. Range changes spacing. Confidence changes defense. And once that genie is out of the bottle, the sport never goes back. The dismissive framing ignores why people tune in. Fans don't show up because they're told to care. They show up because something feels different when she's on the floor. And the moment you deny that reality, you expose your own bias more than hers. What makes Monica McNutt's remarks more troubling isn't just the message. It's the erasure embedded within it. When you suggest that Caitlin Clark's success stems from privilege rather than performance, you erase years of work that no camera ever captured. You erase empty gyms, repetition without applause, and skill built when no one was paying attention. You turn mastery into accident. And that's not just inaccurate. It's disrespectful. Every Logo 3 has a backstory. Every behind-the-back pass comes from thousands of failed attempts before it ever worked in a game. Those things aren't handed out. They're earned. Clark didn't arrive as a finished product. She built herself into one. And the league felt that immediately. As a rookie, she didn't just score. She facilitated. She led. She adjusted to faster defenders, tighter windows, and physicality that college basketball simply doesn't replicate. And still, she finished at the top in assists while shouldering defensive attention no other rookie faced. That matters. You don't lead a league in playmaking while being double-teamed by accident. The argument that kids follow Clark because of race collapses under even minimal scrutiny. Kids follow excitement. Kids follow confidence. Kids follow shots that make crowds gasp. They don't break down demographic theory. They try to recreate what they see in driveways and gyms. They pull up from too deep because she did. They try passes they shouldn't because she can. That's influence. Claiming otherwise reveals more about the speaker than the subject. Especially when the same networks that platform these critiques profit directly from Clark's presence. ESPN benefits from the ratings she brings. The league benefits from the attention she generates. Yet somehow, her success is framed as suspect rather than celebrated. That's the hypocrisy fans recognize instantly, and fans responded loudly. Social media didn't explode because people misunderstood McNutt's point. It erupted because people understood it perfectly. They heard a player being reduced instead of evaluated. They saw a line crossed that didn't need to be crossed. And the backlash wasn't about silencing criticism. It was about demanding honesty. Clark's fanbase isn't monolithic. It's visible at every Fever game. Families. Kids. Older fans. First-timers. Longtime basketball heads. Jerseys in every color. The unifying factor isn't identity. It's admiration. Ask them why they came. They'll talk about her vision. Her range. Her competitiveness. They won't mention race because it's irrelevant to what they're watching, and history backs that up. The league has had white stars before. Talented ones. Marketable ones. None created this level of sustained attention. That's the detail critics skip. If race were the driver, it would have happened already. It didn't. It's happening now because the product is different now. Media coverage, nil. Exposure, those amplify talent. They don't invent it. Captivating players force coverage. They don't wait for it. And Clark forced it. Every attempt to downplay that truth only highlights how uncomfortable it makes certain voices. This isn't about one comment. It's about a pattern. Each time Clark accomplishes something undeniable, the standard shifts. The goalposts move. The criteria change. First it's scoring. Then it's winning. Then it's efficiency. Then it's team success. The moment she meets one benchmark, another appears. That's not analysis. That's avoidance dressed up as critique. The most revealing moments come when comparisons are forced instead of earned. When analysts start weighing Clark against other rookies in ways that ignore context, you see the narrative strain. Yes, standings matter. Yes, winning matters. But so does responsibility. So does defensive attention. So does usage. Clark doesn't just play within an offense. She is the offense. Every possession bends around her presence. She sees more blitzes than any other player because coaches know what happens if they don't send them. That's respect. That's fear. That's acknowledgement without applause. And navigating that pressure while leading in points, minutes, and assists isn't a footnote. It's the definition of impact, yet even here, the conversation shifts. Instead of recognizing the weight she carries, critics pivot to theoreticals. In theory this. In theory that. In theory someone else impacts winning more. Theory is comfortable. Reality is inconvenient. Reality shows a player altering defensive schemes nightly and still producing. The outrage surrounding McNutt's remarks wasn't about demanding praise. It was about asking for fairness. You can say you prefer another player. You can argue stylistic differences. What you can't do is erase excellence because it challenges your framework. Clark's game doesn't fit neatly into old boxes. That's why it draws attention. Mychal Thompson understood that instinctively. He didn't analyze her through politics. He analyzed her through basketball. And what he saw was something new. Something compelling. Something undeniable. That's why his words carried weight. He wasn't defending an idea. He was describing reality. While debates rage, Clark keeps playing. She keeps shooting from distances defenders swear she won't. She keeps finding teammates through traffic. She keeps smiling after daggers that deflate arenas. And while critics argue narratives, the league quietly builds around her presence. Roster moves. Scheduling decisions. Broadcast priorities. Those aren't emotional reactions. They're strategic responses to demand. Bias doesn't stop progress. It just delays acknowledgement. Clark's influence already extends beyond box scores. She's changing how young players train. She's changing how defenses are taught. She's changing what range is considered reasonable. Those shifts don't reverse because someone dislikes the optics. At some point, the conversation will move on. It always does. The noise fades. What remains is impact. Years from now, the debate won't be about why people watched. It'll be about how the game changed once they did, and that's the part no amount of commentary can erase. Monica McNutt's comments about Caitlin Clark miss the point entirely, shifting attention away from a once-in-a-generation talent and toward distractions that don't hold up. Fans, players, and respected voices across basketball, including Mychal Thompson, see what's obvious on the court: skill, confidence, and competitive fire. Thompson points to the envy, insecurity, and ego that fuel the pushback against Clark's rise. Meanwhile, Clark keeps producing, and the Indiana Fever continue assembling a contender around her. With a young core and steady veterans, her influence goes beyond labels. She fills arenas, inspires kids, and reshapes expectations. No media bias can dim excellence she delivers.